Welcome to 3 Minute Warning, a Canadian Football League podcast. We're a member of All Sports, All Plays Network. My name is Bill Beer at Pigskin Punk 13 on Twitter. And joining me tonight, Dallas Bergen at CFL Fans Toronto on Twitter. And as always, all games are available on ESPN Plus in the United States and TSN in Canada. Welcome to this episode of 3 Minute Warning. How's it going, Dallas?
Hey, great, Bill. It was pretty awesome to be able to go to two Argos games in 4 days or whatever it was, 5 days. So it's been a great week. Really good time at those games. And a really exciting one on Friday and a less exciting one last night. And yet, I just got to say how much fun it is to be in the stands and out at the tailgate, connecting with other CFL fans and enjoying the games. That's lifting me up right now.
That's cool. That's exciting. I know all about that. I've been to my fair share of games, and that is a lot of fun being there in person and rooting for the home team and feeling that the electricity of the the crowd and that sort of thing. So yeah, we're about to the playoffs here. We
Yeah,
are
down to the final week.
Yes. So we got some playoff races here, and let's just dive into that a little bit. We got in the East Division, the Argonauts are at the top, followed by the Tiger Cats and Alouettes, who are tied at 7-6, and then the Red Blacks, who are going home early this year. So how you feel pretty good? Well, we already seen the results of, the Argonauts have already clinched the top seed in that division. How do you feel that the Tiger Cats and the Alouettes are going to turn out here?
Yeah, well, that's going to be a really interesting race. The Tiger
Mm-hmm.
Cats hold the advantage there in the season series, and so they're going to be aiming to win that game against Saskatchewan. But Montreal has been coming on strong, and I think no matter where that game is played, that's going to be a really great contest. The game last week on Friday with Hamilton visiting Toronto just created all kinds of questions about the East Division. I was
Oh yeah.
wrong. I'm eating a giant plate of crow because I honestly, and I'm an Argos fan and season ticket holder, I thought Hamilton would come in and kick Toronto's butt. And Toronto took it to the Ticats and just put on a dominant display, which raises all kinds of questions about Hamilton. And then you've got Trevor Harris looking pretty good, leading the Montreal Alouettes. And so, yeah, who knows how things shake out for that second place battle, but people are pretty excited in Toronto, all of those doubts, and there have been a lot. We talked about the modest point differential that Toronto has
Mm-hmm.
given their record, that they've won a lot of close games. But things have come together. How can you fault a team that's 9-5 and managed to gut out some really impressive wins? So it's exciting. I sure hope that we can fill the house no matter who comes to that game on December 5th. But it's a 12:30 kickoff, and I imagine fans will be out in the parking lot from about 8 a.m. So I am so looking forward to what should be a great day in the CFL in Toronto, and hopefully it can really put Toronto on the map in the city here as we try to get more fans out for that game.
Yeah, that should be pretty exciting. Um, Now, them playing at home, I mean, we have a lot of positive expectations playing at home because they have played well at home this year. So it seems to me in the CFL, the biggest thing that I noticed overall this year is teams play well at home, don't necessarily play that great on the road. And Toronto is one of those teams. They just haven't been a great road team this year for whatever reason. So it'll be interesting to see how they grow and that sort of thing. And And no, I'm excited about it. I'm excited about the games. The only thing that I'll say about the West is they're all set. There's not going to be a change. This game coming up, these games coming up this weekend isn't going to change where they're at because they're already secured in their playoff, ranking. So
Yeah, this
assume
last week was really interesting because there was a lot at stake, but now a lot has settled. So yeah, of course you have Winnipeg, who's been in first all year long, and we mentioned last week, one of BC or Calgary was going to be eliminated, and wow, the BC Lions have not looked very good of late, and
no,
they have
no,
bowed themselves out, and Calgary looks fearsome. I think Saskatchewan has a big advantage hosting that semifinal at home, and yet, of course, anything can happen. Calgary's got a tremendous amount of talent, and they've recently picked up more with Trey Roberson and Bagleton coming back, and so Calgary's the team that's firing right now. So that West semifinal's going to be a good one. But yeah, this week that leaves a lot of meaningless games. Although those the situation between Montreal and Hamilton is interesting this week. With actually on Friday night, it's Ottawa at Montreal. So Montreal needs to win that game, and then if they do win that game, then Hamilton has to beat Saskatchewan on Saturday. And Saskatchewan's elected to start Isaac Harker, their backup, in this game. It sounds like he will play most of the game, are the words of head coach Craig Dickinson. And the Riders are resting a number of players as well. So there will be opportunity for Hamilton to seize the day and win that game, although they sure had an opportunity to come into Toronto last week and fell flat on their faces. So who knows what's going to happen, but it'll be a great end to the season as we see how the dust settles in the East.
Yeah, absolutely. So the one thing that have just been announced and are the player nominations for the awards, and it's a little different than what I'm used to in the NFL. I mean, you're used to Player of the Year, MVP. We got most outstanding player, most outstanding defensive player, most outstanding offensive line, and then you have the special teams, and then you have rookie and Canadian. So, who do you like? Who do you like in some of these awards?
Yeah, this is such a fun time and a great time for fans and pundits to discuss the players in the league. There was a lot of great discussion happening on all the team and message boards and social media and whatnot, because everyone's got an opinion, and actually you can pretty much trust these nominations. These nominations don't come from the teams themselves, but from the media and experts from around the league. So they are voted on by, I don't know, a few dozen personalities sometimes, and so what you get is usually a pretty fair representation, and yet there's always conversations that come up around some of these things. I think, I don't know, there were some, I wouldn't say surprises, but I think there were some cases where there was a hard decision to be made. Winnipeg, for example, was such an outstanding defense. Do you pick Adam Bighill or Jeffcoat or Jefferson? I certainly think it could be any of those guys, and yet Adam Bighill being the most outstanding defensive player coming out of Winnipeg makes perfect sense. I think you had actually a very similar situation in Saskatchewan with Lushez Purifoy, who has played halfback, safety, and Sam linebacker all, along with Micah Johnson at defensive tackle, and AC Leonard at defensive end, and Jonathan Woodard as well. So those two defensive ends have quietly passed Jefferson and Jeffcoat for sack numbers, and they're not getting the same praise. But I think any of those Rider defenders could have been up there as well. And yet I think Purifoy is a great choice because of the versatility he's shown with his skills on the back end to be able to play 3 different positions on that defense, just handling the injuries as they come and keeping that defense competitive in spite of a number of injuries. So those are a couple interesting ones. And then looking to the Toronto Argonauts, I won't say it wasn't deserved. I think I like the pick, most outstanding rookie, going to offensive lineman and center Peter Nicastro. Though Sean Oakman, the defensive lineman, was eligible. And, playing on the defensive line and racking up sacks and turnovers is a much flashier position. And so I'm surprised that Nicastro was recognized ahead of Oakman, but I think it's really well deserved. I remember after the 2020 draft, Toronto fans were trying to pencil in what they thought their Argonauts depth chart was, and the Argonauts didn't have a center. And so, there was a question, some people thought, that Blake might be the center who started the year at that position, and yet they drafted Peter Nicastro, I think, to be the future center of this team. But that was probably a 1 or 2 year plan that ended up being 1 or 2 weeks with those injuries along the offensive line in the first 3 weeks. And Peter Nicastro has been outstanding. So he won the outstanding O-lineman and the outstanding rookie awards here in Toronto. I think that's really great picks.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'm not good at, offensive linemen. The professionals say, well, he's playing well. I know when they're playing bad, but when they're playing good, you don't really hear too much about them. You probably should, but it's not a position that, people are shouted out as often as they should be. It's an important position, but who as far as your most outstanding player do you like? Who do you think is going to take it? Yeah, league-wide.
Yeah, that's interesting. So and so the way the awards work is they will first choose the list from each division. And so for most outstanding player, I'm pretty certain you'll be looking at Zach Collaros in the West, quarterback for Winnipeg. And in the East, I think it's got to be William Stanback. Yeah, I mean, a couple of the quarterbacks here, like how can you choose a quarterback as most outstanding player when their performance has diminished over previous years? So Cody Fajardo, McLeod Bethel Thompson, like they didn't really have great years. They put together good win-loss records for their teams. But I mean, both of them were much better in 2019. And so I think I think Collaros is a shoo-in from the West. And then I think it'll come down to, the most outstanding player is almost always a quarterback. And when somebody wins it who isn't a quarterback, they had a season for the ages, like a 2,000-yard rushing season or 110 tackles, linebacker, or a dozen interceptions or something of that kind of record-breaking statistics. And yet, William Stanback in 11 games has rushed for, 110, 130 yards a game. Like he's on pace, I think, for 1,850 over an 18-game season, which in the CFL record books puts him like, that's probably a top 5 rushing performance of all time. So,
and he even missed a game.
And I was prorating that over an 18-game season. But yes, this season though, you're right. He missed a game, and so he's over 1,000 or 1,100 or whatever it is now. But a heck of a season William Stanback's having. So I think that'll be really interesting to see how that one goes. And then the others, I'm not sure. I hadn't considered this yet, but most outstanding defensive in the West, I think that's got to be Adam Bighill. I mean, I think Bo Locombo had a great year, but on a losing team, on a team that isn't playoff bound, it's tough to take a guy. Although Jordan Williams actually has a real good shot at most rookie of the year the BC Canadian linebacker, first overall draft pick. But yeah, I think it's got to be Adam Bighill on defense in the West and defense in the East. Oh, yeah, that one's tougher. I mean, I wasn't even sure that McCoyle was the shoe-in defensive player for Toronto, and yet looking at this list, I mean, Avery Williams, who just extended in Ottawa, there's something for Ottawa Red Blacks fans to be happy and excited about.
Oh yeah,
that their middle linebacker has renegotiated or signed a new contract extension. But yeah, I mean, all of these players have had outstanding years. I think David Menard is a bit of a surprise in Montreal as well. I think Monshatter Hunter could have been the guy there. Maybe even Barron. I mean, they've got a number of players on the defensive line, but David Menard has had a great year too. So interesting race there. Yeah, and go back to rookies. So I think you've got to say in the West, Jordan Williams, DeAndre Alford has had a good year in Winnipeg, and Keon Schaefer-Baker surprised the CFL universe with his play in Saskatchewan, and yet I think Jordan Williams, having started as a raw rookie and had such a great year, is the one there. And then on the East, yeah, I think, I mean, David Cote has had a great year in Montreal. I think Peter Nicastro could win coming out of the East, which would be really awesome to see. I don't think Desmond Lawrence has been lights out coming in and playing corner in Hamilton.
No.
Ryan Davis obviously showed a lot of good things, but because of Dedmon didn't get the opportunity to act as a kick returner as much as he could have, and when he did, he really shone. And then with just as bad as their offense was, maybe that's a reason to give him more of a nod for the great performance he had this year. But wow, I wonder if it could be Peter Nicastro as a finalist for Rookie of the Year. That would be awesome. But yeah, I think that's got to go to Jordan Williams, though. A first overall pick starting the entire season, top of the league, close to the top of the league in tackles.
Yeah, that's pretty exciting. It'll be interesting, that's for sure. I mean, there's not, as you said, back to the most outstanding player, there isn't anybody that really stands out. We thought for a moment maybe, Lucky Whitehead, the way he was playing early on and then he got hurt. We thought, and you could make a case for, any of these running backs too. William Stanback. It just probably will go to Zach Collaros. That's who I think will ultimately.
Yeah, I think that's a good prediction too. I guess the one thing you wonder if maybe with Winnipeg being such a complete team that might actually steer some people away from Zach Collaros, and maybe Stanback has a shot there, but who knows?
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
I love these lists. This is fun.
And,
yeah, and like who's going to be the outstanding? Sorry, I'm just like who's going to be the most outstanding Canadian in the East? I mean, look at this list: Tunde Adeleke, Curly Gittens Jr., Lewis Ward, David Menard. I would have a really tough time picking one of those over the other three. Those are three really fantastic Canadian players who've all had great years.
I mean, Gittens Jr., he's really come on.
Yeah.
Majorly. He's been he's stepped up for, some of these injuries and whatever, and he keeps making plays.
Yeah, he's become a clutch guy. When you see a rookie do that, that's and a Canadian, that's not a rookie, I guess, pardon me, but that is pretty awesome to see.
And then you actually have a special teams award.
Yeah, that's an interesting one because it can go to either a kicker, and either a place kicker or a punter, or it can go to a return specialist. So picking that one is kind of odd sometimes too, because you're putting a 89% field goal kicker up against a 12-yard punt returner, on average
And
or something
and then
like
you
that.
got
How do
somebody
you
like
weigh those things?
right. Then you got
But
somebody like Mike Miller who's been doing it for
yeah,
a
absolutely. And then
while.
those guys that go make the tackles too.
Yep.
So
That's kind of neat to special teams doesn't you don't hear about awards, especially in the NFL with special teamers. They don't necessarily but they're important as anybody else on the team. So you can see how many a few of these teams went through, like BC Lions went through some kickers
yeah, a few.
to start off the
Yeah.
season. They didn't they could have won a game or two.
Hamilton's gone through kickers.
Yeah,
Winnipeg's gone through kickers. Yeah.
yeah,
Hamilton making changes just in the last few days, coming in the playoffs too.
yeah.
But yeah, I like these awards that they do. There is some inclusion there, that these players at other positions can be recognized. It's one of the reason we have most outstanding defensive player too, because
Hmm.
the quarterbacks and the offensive players so often steal the MOP. It's great to have that defensive list as well. And yeah, those special teamers and those old linemen, the big hoggies, they deserve their due too. So it's a great honor
Hmm.
for whoever wins these.
Absolutely. So how about we go ahead and jump into the games here? And our
Yeah,
first,
let's do it. Take me back to Friday.
okay, Friday night, we had the Hamilton Tiger Cats at the Toronto Argonauts. And if I told you Jeremiah Masoli was going to throw for 326 yards, but the final score was going to be a blowout, you wouldn't have believed me. You wouldn't have believed me. But it was all Toronto all the time. We had, touchdown. As I said, Curly Gittens Jr. scored a touchdown. We have interception return for touchdown on Toronto's side. It just was a very solid outing. And again, McLeod Bethel Thompson was solid, but not spectacular. They didn't run the ball great. I mean, DJ Foster had an average of 2.6 yards a carry. Curly Gittens Jr. was the leading receiver, 72 yards, 7 catches, and a touchdown. So it was kind of exciting. On the other hand, if you're Hamilton, what do you do? Where are you going for
are you talking the quarterback position or just in general, right?
Position.
Well, man,
Yeah.
if you want to join in some engaging conversation, check out a Hamilton Tiger Cats fan forum right now, because there are a lot. I mean, most of the fans have chosen their quarterback, and some of them think that it should have been Dane Evans for quite a while now, and even with one game to go, this team should be his. And there are others who want to stand behind Jeremiah Masoli, and this is a tricky one. I mean, their career stats are very comparable, and Masoli has not been bad by any means. I mean, he has had some outstanding games, and sometimes they lose. This game was not a good one. Credit to the Toronto Argonauts secondary, but Masoli is a very accurate passer. If you take a look, I'm not sure a lot of people are aware, but he's a 68, 69% passer most of the time. And in this game went just 55%, no touchdowns and 2 interceptions. And once you look at that poor completion percentage and 2 interceptions, and one of them was right at the end of the game, the pick 6, but even still, that's not a great quarterbacking effort when you had 40 pass attempts, right? 40 pass attempts should be putting up some pretty big passing numbers. And so I don't know. I think this is exactly what a lot of people thought would happen, that Masoli would be good enough that by the time you want to make the change, it's kind of too late. I think it's too late for them to make the move to Evans. Unless, like, for a start, I think you could make the move if Masoli had a terrible first quarter or half. And who knows, maybe that's this game against Saskatchewan that makes that switch happen so that Evans can carry the team into the playoffs. But honestly, I think Hamilton should handle Saskatchewan, who's resting a lot of the
Yeah,
teams. So then you're
you would
likely in a
think so.
situation where it solves nothing,
Mhm.
and they're gonna roll with Masoli. I'd stick with Masoli personally. I think he's a great quarterback, but I understand why this is a topic of discussion for sure. I mean, I think this was Dane Evans' team to start this year, and then just due to injuries, kind of ended up going back to Jeremiah Masoli. But who do you like there?
Yeah, I would have to say you go with Masoli now. If he comes out and lays a huge egg this week, then maybe we can talk. But I think you have to go with him. That might not be the popular opinion, but I mean, I do have to say that Toronto's defense made some great plays on those 50-50 balls. They were making some very good plays, the defensive backs. So I do have to give them credit too, because they were playing very well.
Yeah, that's an aggressive, increasingly aggressive D. Hey, I mean, Chris Edwards, there's another guy that could have been Toronto's defensive player of the year. And I won't say that he sealed it because the game was, I think, long over, but that pick six at the end, what a great play to jump that ball. And, he's been a real ball hawk all year long. But yeah, I mean, again, going back to the Masoli thing, like Toronto beat Hamilton soundly in all three phases. That's not on Jeremiah Masoli, right? So that team has some more things to figure out before, well, the playoffs for sure, but maybe even this game against Saskatchewan. They're going to want to put forth a good effort to, of course, try and claim that home game, but also just so that they can go into the playoffs confident with their quarterback under center, confident that they've got the roster that they want, and hasn't been a great end to the season for them.
No, it hasn't.
Yeah.
And DeVaris Daniels again had a decent game. I think they've been using him a little bit better than they had the majority of the season the last couple of weeks. So he has been more involved. I mean, there were some weeks where he had only like a catch or two, but
yeah, him moving inside has been fantastic. It's just you're going to get more targets, and yeah, he's been great. Still not like the superstar he was in 2019. So that's unfortunate that Toronto has never figured out how to get him back to 2019 form.
And there's a lot of players that didn't get back to their 2019 form.
That's true. An awful
all
lot.
Over the league.
Yeah. And maybe that's shortened season and shortened training camp and everything else, but it's true. He wasn't the only one.
Yeah. So, okay. Our next game, of course, was Friday. There was the late game, and it was the Calgary Stampeders at the BC Lions. And we had a pretty entertaining game. It was Calgary 33, BC Lions 23. And I thoroughly enjoyed this game. It went back and forth. It was close at times. Calgary ended up pulling away a little bit there in the second half. Mike Riley had a decent game, 340 yards, 1 touchdown. Bo Levi Mitchell had a very efficient game. 20 of 26 for 264 and 3 touchdowns. And what can you say about Kadeem Carey, 5.7 yard average? And even James Butler, had an 8.1 yard average. So it was something. And then you got the return of Reggie.
That's right. Reggie Begelton.
And I'm not familiar with him, but he had been in the CFL previously. Am I right?
Yeah, and I mean he was a star there, and actually going back, I mean, Tavares Daniels was in Edmonton, but prior to that, he was in Calgary. And I think Reggie Begelton was one of the reasons that Tavares Daniels may have moved on. My memory may be wrong there, but Begelton was outstanding. And yeah, look at that. Just insert him in the lineup, and he and Bo, it's like click, click, click. 7 catches for 119.
Yep. I mean, he was not even inserted, a week ago. And by the second week, you got a 100-yard game, a touchdown, and looks like he's been there all year.
Yeah, great chemistry there. Great players. Yep. I actually missed most of this one. I was coming home from the Toronto game, and it was a long day at the Argos game. But I did catch the end. But the thing that really stood out to me was like, here are, we've seen both Bo Levi Mitchell and Michael Riley have kind of off years, kind of maybe people wondering if they're in the decline, and yet here are 2 performances indicative of their elite echelon status. I mean, 30 of 37 for Michael Riley, just a 1 touchdown compared to Bo's 3, but 81.1%. And then Bo Levi Mitchell, 20 of 26, and no interceptions from either of them. Like those are 2 outstanding quarterbacking performances from those 2 guys.
And if you think about the receiving core for the BC Lions and you look at the stats, you're like, okay, that's not who I expected at the top of the stats. I didn't expect Dominique Grimes.
Yeah, Dominique Grimes finally having a game.
Leading the receiver, and Brian Burnham only having 2 catches. It was definitely interesting. So
Brian Burnham is one you maybe do start to wonder if he's nearing the end. That drop off has been pretty significant there.
Yeah, especially the last, 3-4 weeks. When they've been struggling. I mean, when Lucky Whitehead was on fire, Brian Burnham was, almost like a complimentary guy, and that just hasn't happened.
Yeah.
So
I don't know, some of the people, and maybe this would have been earlier in the year, but I think, it's possible that Burnham was garnering the attention that was deserved of him given his 2019 performance, and that might have freed up Lucky Whitehead for a number of those early games. But then I think Whitehead made the case that he is an elite receiver in this league too.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, what a puzzle in BC. It'd be with mixed feelings that I were a BC Lions fan right now. There are a lot of really great things happening off the field, actually, with new ownership coming in there, and a lot of really great initiatives that are looking to rejuvenate that fan base and a young and more diverse fan base of the BC Lions. And yet you look at the team on the field, and 2019 was already such a disappointment. There was such great hope that this year would be better, and they just kind of flamed out at the end. It's almost worse, just to see some bad performances and key players getting up there in years, and you're not sure how much longer. Like, they're definitely the core now, but are they the core in even 2 seasons from now? I'm not sure. So a lot of questions there in BC.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at one point you thought they might be, one of the elite teams in the West there, and then it just fell apart. So
yeah,
and Calgary made a pretty decent comeback. I mean, they really started the season pretty bad. Bo Levi Mitchell getting injured, Jake Meyer came in, and he didn't play bad. He didn't. They lost a few games with him, but he had some decent games. I think we were even mentioning, like, his first few games, he had, I don't know how many 300-yard games. So
3 in a row.
Yeah, so he was pretty solid.
Yeah, they're looking good. I guess you never count out the Calgary Stampeders.
Yeah, yeah. So on to Saturday's games. And this is where, not really a surprise, but Winnipeg sat most of their guys. Their
Yeah,
quarterback.
maybe Zach Collaros is the MOP.
Maybe. Yeah. Sean McGuire started. He did not have a good game. It was 11 for 26, 149, 1 TD, 4 interceptions. He still had some of his receiving core in there because Kenny Lawler was their leading receiver. They couldn't run the ball very well with Brady Oliveira. And Trevor Harris played pretty decent.
Yeah.
I mean,
Trevor Harris looked like Trevor Harris, hey?
Yeah, he only had 144 yards, but he had 3 touchdowns. Geno Lewis had 2 of those. So it was this game was pretty well. Kind of knew that Winnipeg wasn't gonna. At least I didn't think that they were gonna come out on top on this one.
Yeah, especially after they played in Winnipeg to a pretty close game the previous week. But yeah, it's unfortunate at the end of the season. Some of the records get shaken up. I certainly didn't want Winnipeg to win every game, and yet they deserved the record they had, and they probably deserved to win this one had they started their MOP quarterback. And I was sad to see the Toronto Argonauts lose at home because they had an undefeated record at home, and went with not just Antonio Pipkin. They played the entire B team like I have never seen before in football. We can talk about that later, but it's pretty amazing to look at the Argonauts depth chart last night. They literally rested everybody. It was wild. Whereas in this game, Winnipeg didn't. So you've named it already. I mean, they played their entire receiving core. They mostly just rested their quarterback.
Right.
And of course, Andrew Harris is still not healthy by all accounts. So he was getting well, not getting rest.
Right.
But yeah, hey, Montreal. Well, they're good. They're good defense, and now I think they're a really good team because Trevor Harris. I wouldn't count them out by any means. They sure made the Eastern Division a lot more interesting coming down the stretch here with Trevor Harris there.
Absolutely. So yeah, and then we had our last game, which was Edmonton at Saskatchewan, and this was a closer game than I imagined it would be. And Saskatchewan ended up 29-24 over the Elks. The Elks moved to 3-10. Taylor Cornelius had a decent game. So did Cody Vajaro. It was just a very close game, and I know you paid close attention to this game. Is it surprising you how close they are to some of these teams that don't seem to be the most competitive?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this margin of victory was not large enough for Rider fans. Kind of raised concerns, I think. I think people thought taking this home and home back to Regina, it would be a blowout. So there were some positives for sure. Cody Fajardo did have a solid outing, not like off the charts, but a really, a really good day with 3 touchdowns and 245 yards. And I think one of the brightest spots was to see Daquille Williams, see Duke have such a great day as well. Those short kick catches in the 3 previous games were great to see. Oh, was this the third one? Anyway, but for him to have 146 yards receiving, finally, that's the chemistry they were looking for. Oh, and one bad sign, I don't want to make too much of it, but Shaq Evans and Cody haven't found their chemistry that they had in 2019 and even earlier in the year. And Evans showed a little bit of frustration. I'm not sure if it was directed at Cody Fajardo or offensive coaches or anything. May have just been himself because he's a competitor and wants to lead and perform well as well. But you'd sure like to see everything clicking in Saskatchewan instead of a few things coming up, coming up short. But yeah, Taylor Cornelius, wow, he has
Mm-hmm.
really improved. I mean, he
Oh
was an
yes, yeah,
interception machine, 6 interceptions in, I don't know, was the first 3 games. And since that time, he's got half a dozen touchdowns and maybe 1 interception, I think. He's getting better and better. You see him taking some of the mustard off of his ball too. He's maybe gotten some feedback from receivers or coaches, but how he zings them in there. But he's
mm-hmm.
looking a lot better,
Oh yeah,
and showing real chemistry with Jalen Tolliver, who I think was his teammate in the XFL. Was that right? I think so.
yes, I think
But
so.
Tolliver has just stepped up and been a fantasy stud because he's been at 2,500 or still close to it. So some bright spots there, and Walter Fletcher as well. I mean, 136 all-purpose yards, and for a few games in a row now, looking pretty sharp. A different kind of back
Yeah,
than James Wilder Jr., but oh man, Fletcher's been exciting, a joy to watch. So I'm kind of happy to see Edmonton have some things to be positive about. Although, man, you still have to question not playing Nick Arbuckle. You sign him to a
yeah.
contract
That's
extension.
that's odd
So
to me.
strange. It's really, really odd.
Yeah, because I think it turned into a second round draft choice because they said if they signed him to an extension,
Yeah.
it went from a 3 to a 2. So I don't know. Unless they're going to start him Friday night.
I doubt it. I don't know,
But
maybe,
yeah,
but I don't think
yeah.
so. All signs are like that they're going to wait till next year, and I guess they're deciding who they want to bring into camp to compete for the number 1, which I guess they've tagged Arbuckle with that contract. It just, I don't know. It seems odd, but I'm not a coach or a GM, just a fan. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So we will see what happens. We do have the last week of the season coming up here.
Yeah, which we've already
And we got
started. I guess we got one more
yes.
game to review from last night. But
Yeah,
we had
that
Edmonton coming into town in Toronto. Wow, this was one of the games where you can have the conversation. Oh, is the CFL product weaker this year? But no, it was a lot of backups playing in a meaningless game. But this one was not a joy to watch. I had a great time in the stands, just reconnecting with fans, just at my third, game this season. And but wow, this game was not great. Very first pass on one side is an interception, and then the very next pass on the other team is an interception, and that kind of set the tone for the day. It was not pretty. But you know what? It was really exciting to see the second level of the depth chart play especially for Toronto, because there were
mm-hmm.
a lot of players starting in different positions even. So Josh Haggerty start at Sam linebacker, who had a couple games at safety when Creston Butler was hurt.
Yeah.
And Haggerty didn't have the best outings at safety in those games, and he came in and played Sam and played really well. So, I think that was a really bright spot for them, and someone who's played well on special teams all along. So anyway, just great to see these guys playing. And some of their new recruits too. Thaddeus Coleman, a CFL veteran, but who wasn't playing this season. I think teams thought that maybe he was done. Toronto brought him in because they've had trouble at the tackle positions, and then with injuries, and things haven't been very good there lately. But he had a pretty decent game the other night too.
Josh Huff got in for some action. He had a great night
and returning.
Yeah, Antonio Pipkin. I just think he's your goal line quarterback, but yeah.
Yeah, you never want to say that about a quarterback, but you just have
Yeah,
to after that
yeah,
performance.
right.
And Antonio Pipkin's been a starter in this league, although I mean that was the criticism then too.
Hmm.
He had a real opportunity to show well in this game, and he didn't. Went 10 of 22, no touchdowns, that one interception. I guess if you don't throw any interceptions after your first pass, that's not a bad day, but would have liked to have seen better from him. And boy, is he good running the football, though.
Yes, he is.
he really is on that touchdown run, and some of the
He was their
others
running game.
up the middle. Oh, he is quick and fast and really talented, but wish you could see him have a little better passing game. Yeah, and wow, who is Cameron Scarlett? Like, we're just going deep into the running
Yeah.
back depth chart in Toronto. I think did I take AJ Olette, I think, in fantasy, which was a huge oops. But Scarlett looked pretty decent,
Yeah.
57 on 10 carries. And we got to see another quarterback that I didn't have much knowledge of either. Cole McDonald came in and fired off an interception, actually got the ball back anyway, but
Yeah.
went 4 for 8, and just nice to see someone else under center. But yeah, it was great to see Josh Huff in action. Cam Phillips finally played. So the XFL leading receiver in yardage and touchdowns, I think, only 5 games, of course, but has been on the practice roster in Toronto all season long, and losing the shot to play behind guys like Damien Jean-Pierre and Dress Anderson. And Cameron Phillips finally got in the game. He wasn't great. I think I remember he had a drop. He didn't look fast, didn't look sharp. He had 2 catches on 6 attempts, actually. So who knows how close the attempts were, but that's never good when receivers catching a third of the balls thrown at him, and for just 20 yards.
Yeah. He was his one season in the XFL. He was pretty spectacular, but yeah, he hasn't been the same guy. Another stint in the NFL and training camp, and just hasn't been on it. Is missing something. So
always interesting to see who excels and who doesn't. There's some chance and luck in there. I think good coaching and where they put them priority on the play selection and like everything. It's just that sometimes the guy gets hot and then he makes a career out of it. And other times, guy just can't get it going. So
yeah. So
yeah. Oh, there's a guy that can't get it going. How about Darrell Walker? I mean, he did lead Edmonton in receiving this game, but listen to this: 4 catches on 13 attempts. 13 attempts. And he dropped some bad ones, and actually his body language was really bad on a few plays, showing pretty lousy effort too. I mean, they had 2 wins coming in this game. I guess
I've seen that.
Shouldn't fault anyone too much, but
previous games, I've seen him not put in a lot of effort on certain balls. I don't know what's going on with him. I mean, I only have the experience of this year, but I've seen the previous year, and he almost looked like a different player.
I mean, the Toronto Argonauts made him the highest paid receiver in the CFL in 2019. Right, so
yeah,
he has fallen off, and he had a very good year with Toronto in 2019. It wasn't like exceptional, but I think if I recall, he did have a really good outing, but not as good as what he had previous, I think, in Edmonton. But yeah, wow.
Yep. So some of the games Friday night, we have Ottawa at Montreal, which should be 2 teams that are playing to win. I assume Ottawa is, gonna play the usual guys. They're not in a situation where they're gonna sit people or anything like that. So
yeah, no, of course not. I assume Devlin Hodges will start again. I haven't seen anything this week about who will be under center for Ottawa, but that would be my guess. But who knows? And yeah, and I mean, Montreal is going to come to play because they can still finish second. But who knows? Ottawa would probably love to spoil Montreal's playoff plans, and maybe Devlin Hodges starts to pull it together, just like Taylor Cornelius has,
Mhm.
a little bit more experience. You know, those Ottawa players playing for pride and playing for jobs. Although that game is in Montreal, that's going to be a tough one.
Yeah.
And then the
And
next
then we
game on Friday night, we've got Edmonton and BC. This is a meaningless game with both of them eliminated from the playoffs in the West Division. And yet, I think an interesting games for fans of both of those teams too, because you want to see your team finish well
Mhm.
when it's been a disappointing season.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And they're playing
Oh,
what,
and Nathan
3
Rourke's
days
going to
between
start.
games.
Actually, that's really interesting for BC to see Rourke get the start at quarterback.
Yeah. And for Edmonton, three 3 days between games. It's like almost unheard of.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember they made some roster exceptions. They're allowed to dress an extra 5 players for these and something else, but it's pretty shocking that they scheduled 3 games in a week for Edmonton. And yet they wanted to play them and had to play them. Players wanted to play them and make a check, so they figured out a way to do it, of course, with the game, Toronto game here being the one that was rescheduled due to the COVID outbreak in Edmonton early in the season. But yeah, you hope that you don't see any injuries. And in a meaningless game, I guess that makes it all the safer too, that you don't play guys who are at risk of injury due to the high volume of play. But glad we got all the games in anyway.
Yeah. So that's pretty exciting in the end of the regular season, the amended season. Winnipeg, Calgary, which you have in our notes, meaningless. It's very it's very one of those you just those that game is just playing for next year, the guys that want to be on the team. So
yeah, well, they're both going to playoffs, but
yeah,
but their seeds are both fixed. So you're right; both teams will probably rest a number of guys.
Yeah, absolutely. So
and then of course we have Saskatchewan going to Hamilton on Saturday as well.
Yep.
And that one might not mean anything either.
Yeah.
With a Montreal loss, although I assume Montreal is going to come out, gunning for that win against Ottawa the night before. So this one could be really big for those Hamilton fans. For Saskatchewan, it'll be interesting to see Isaac Harker under center. But that should be a good game just because of the stakes that are likely for Hamilton. I might get to that game. We'll see. But, yeah. And, Hamilton fans want to see a complete effort in all phases too. Going into the playoffs. So that's going to be interesting there as well.
Yeah. So should be exciting. I look forward to the playoffs.
Oh yeah, going to be a good time. Can't wait for those playoff games. I mean, you just think of Calgary coming to Saskatchewan, like that's going to be a time. And whether it's Hamilton or Montreal in Toronto, that's going to be an awesome day as well for that one. And then of course, whoever goes to Winnipeg is going to be in for a tough task too. So going to be lots of fun.
Yeah.
It looks like we're at the 5-minute warning, so time to get into our studs and duds.
Oh yeah. The last week I did pretty we both did pretty poorly.
Oh, last week? Yeah, I didn't
Yeah,
have a very good week.
the
That's
last
true.
week
You're looking good this week. I think I
yeah,
recall.
yeah.
Excuse me.
This week, well, I did play AJ Ouellette, so that wasn't too good. But I stuck Josh Huff in there and Argonauts defense. But the previous week I did awful.
Well, I had AJ Olette last week, who had
Ah,
6 yards on 3 carries. So that was a bad pick for me. I think I remember saying that my stud prediction was Jalen Tolliver. That one worked out really well. He had 5 for 98 for
oh,
two
that's
two
right.
touchdowns,
Yes, yeah,
which was good for 26.8 points. So that was by far my best pick. I had Cody Fajardo as well, which turned out well with 22 points on the 3 touchdown effort. But after that, my picks were not very good. I thought Dejon Brissett might have a breakout game last Friday against Hamilton and only managed 3 catches for 26. I had Shaq Evans, who had a really poor outing with 3 catches for 20. And so those kind of sunk my week, unfortunately.
mhm,
Otherwise, it wasn't too bad. I had William Powell as well. Not a great outing for him. 12.5 points is okay, but that's just 59 yards rushing. So,
yeah. I mean, I guess I did okay. I mean, I had Cody Fajardo who had 22 points. I stuck DJ Foster in there. I mean, he didn't have a terrific game. It was okay. Lucky Whitehead, Chandler Worthy, which
oh yeah, and Worthy
he
didn't
got most
play.
of his yards on return.
Oh, on Friday. Yeah, right.
Yeah, I stuck in Bennett Jackson,
Jackson Bennett and Hamilton. Yeah.
who had one reception for 18 yards because I don't really know what I'm doing, and the Saskatchewan defense who gave up 24 points. So this week you have to watch the depth charts because you might be starting guys that aren't even playing. So that's the one thing I did for last night's game. I scanned the depth charts and say who should I play, that sort of thing. So
Yeah, well, this week could be one of those weeks where your guys at 25 to 3,500 could be some really great picks with all of the depth playing in these games. I didn't go too deep this week, but I went back to Jalen Tolliver, who didn't have a great night the other night, unfortunately, just 3 for 38. But he's got one more game coming, so these Edmonton players, another one of these strange 5-game weeks with Edmonton playing twice. So I went with the Edmonton defense, which is actually a good pick because Toronto could only manage 7 points yesterday. So they were good for 13 points already and have another game coming up. I took Walter Fletcher, who didn't have a great night, 55 yards on 11 carries, but again, he's got another game. I went with Johnny Augustine for Winnipeg playing against Calgary. I worry about that pick a little bit, but we'll see how that goes. I just don't know how much Brady Oliveira carries the ball, or if Augustine, like I'm hoping Augustine gets like the whole game, but maybe kind of like the DJ Foster, John White thing, right? Where if Harris is hurt, then maybe you completely rest Oliveira, even though he's the number 2 back. And then maybe Johnny Augustine has a great day, but that's a risk. And I've got Trevor Harris because I believe Trevor Harris will pick Ottawa to pieces. So we'll see how that goes.
yeah, because they need to win there. So.
Oh, and I got Eugene Lewis because I seem to, I guess I've gotten lucky taking him once, but I've taken Eugene Lewis when it's been a bad pick, and I'm hoping that this is one of those weeks. He's been so clutch down the stretch. I mean, he's made a case for the most outstanding receiver in the CFL. I think he is right now, isn't he?
Can be.
I don't know. I know you love your Lucky Whitehead.
Yeah.
I still make a case for him for sure, but man, has Eugene Lewis been solid.
Definitely. He's definitely been solid.
Yeah. All right. Well, looks like we're out of time.
Yep. So this has been Three Morning, a Canadian Football League podcast with myself, Bill Beer at Pigskin Punk 13 on Twitter, Dallas Bergen at CFL Fans Toronto on Twitter. Again, we're on the All Sports All Plays Network Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, and the audio podcast is available everywhere where you catch podcasts. So until next time, we will see you later.
Make sure you watch those games, ESPN, ESPN
Yes,
Plus, and
yes.
TSN.
Absolutely.